Good evening. You are watching World News. Tonight, we are tracking nuclear diplomacy and military signaling in West Asia. Iran fortifies its nuclear facilities even as talks with Washington resume in Oman. Opposition voices warn of escalating repression inside Iran. Questions emerge over possible military shipments involving Russia and China, and the United States issues fresh navigation warnings in the Strait of Hormuz. We begin with the uneasy balance between diplomacy and deterrence, negotiations on one side, strategic preparations on the other. Iran's senior security official, Ali Larijani, is in Muscat, Oman, as Tehran and Washington resume nuclear negotiations under Omani mediation. The visit comes amid fresh satellite imagery showing activity at Iran's key nuclear facilities in Natanz and Isfahan, sites previously targeted during last year's strikes by Israel and the United States. Reports now suggest Tehran is reinforcing these installations, potentially to protect critical infrastructure as diplomacy continues. Here's the report.
Something is changing beneath the desert outside Isfahan, and the world is watching with growing alarm. New satellite imagery reveals that every visible tunnel entrance at Iran's key nuclear complex has been covered with tons of earth and reinforced ground layers. Analysts say the work was carried out rapidly and deliberately, not routine maintenance. The images show fresh soil, new vehicle tracks, and construction patterns consistent with emergency hardening. For intelligence officials, the message is clear. Iran is bracing for war, expecting that its most sensitive nuclear heart could soon be targeted from the sky or from the ground. Military experts warn the move is not symbolic, it is defensive engineering, designed to survive an attack. By burying access points, Iran could reduce the blast effects of bunker buster bombs, complicate any special forces raid, and shield centrifuges or enriched uranium stored deep underground. Similar fortifications were spotted only days before the massive Operation Midnight Hammer last year, when American forces struck Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan in a coordinated assault. That precedent now hangs over every new satellite frame. Officials say Iran appears to be planning for the worst-case scenario, another wave of precision strikes. On June 22, 2025, that scenario became reality. The United States launched one of the largest air operations in modern Middle East history, aimed at crippling Iran's nuclear program. 125 aircraft crossed continents, some flying as decoys over the Pacific, while stealth bombers slipped toward Iranian airspace undetected. 24 cruise missiles were fired from a submarine at Isfahan as B-2 bombers delivered waves of precision munitions. Washington later said the strikes had significantly set back Iran's ability to build a nuclear weapon, though Iran insisted its program would continue. The most dramatic blows fell on Fordow, the mountain-buried enrichment plant considered the crown jewel of Iran's ambitions. 14 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, the heaviest conventional bombs in the American arsenal, were unleashed to punch through dozens of meters of rock and concrete. Each weapon weighs 30,000 pounds and can burrow 60 meters into Earth before exploding. Only the United States possesses them. Military planners believed they were the only tools capable of reaching the hidden chambers where advanced centrifuges spin beyond the reach of inspectors. After the attacks, President Donald Trump appeared on television with a stark ultimatum: agree to a deal or face far greater action. He said, "Remember, there are many targets left." Since then, the region has slid toward open confrontation as Israel and Iran trade blows and diplomacy stalls. Now, with Isfahan's tunnels disappearing under fresh layers of soil, fears are rising that Iran expects the next round at any moment. The sealed entrances are more than construction. They are a signal that Iran believes the countdown has begun and that the next strike could decide the future of the Middle East.
Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has described the regime's crackdown on protesters as a, quote, genocide in the making, unquote, alleging the use of lethal force against unarmed civilians. In an interview with the American radio host Hugh Hewitt, Pahlavi called for stronger international intervention against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, accusing it of brutalizing Iranian citizens. Here's more in this report.
President Trump must take decisive military action to stop the Iranian regime from slaughtering its own people. These are the words of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah and a prominent opposition figure living in the United States. His fiery appeals come as anti-government protests engulf Iran, and the Islamic Republic responds with unprecedented brutality. Pahlavi has called on the U.S. and international community to conduct surgical strikes against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's paramilitary backbone, describing it as the regime's main instrument of repression. He argues that neutralizing IRGC command structures and assets could weaken the government's deadly crackdown, save lives, and accelerate its collapse, all without a full-scale war. The unrest in Iran began in late December 2025, triggered by economic collapse, runaway inflation, and the rial losing nearly half its value. Protests quickly spread to all 31 provinces, with citizens chanting against the regime, waving pre-1979 symbols, and voicing support for Pahlavi. The government's response was swift and brutal: nationwide internet blackouts, mass arrests, executions, and lethal force reportedly killing thousands. The violence peaked after Pahlavi publicly called for coordinated nationwide demonstrations in early January 2026. Pahlavi emphasizes that the regime is on its last leg and presents the U.S. with a rare window for decisive support. On February 9, 2026, in a Hugh Hewitt radio interview, he reiterated his call for military strikes, warning that delays could lead to more bloodshed, even what he described as a genocide in the making. He framed U.S. intervention as essential to level the playing field between unarmed protesters and heavily armed state forces, tying it to Trump's earlier promise that help is on the way. President Trump has publicly threatened very strong action if killings continue, but has also expressed skepticism about Pahlavi's ability to rally support inside Iran. No direct strikes have yet been confirmed, even as U.S. fleet movements in the region and indirect nuclear talks mediated by Oman unfold in parallel. The next weeks could shape Iran's future. Targeted strikes on IRGC leadership might embolden protesters, fracture regime loyalty, and hasten a transition to democracy, potentially positioning Pahlavi as a central figure. But any military action risks retaliation against U.S. or Israeli assets, raising the specter of a wider regional conflict. Without intervention, the regime may temporarily suppress the uprising, though underlying grievances would likely resurface. Pahlavi's broader vision includes maximum economic pressure on the regime, free internet access via tools like Starlink, the release of political prisoners, expulsion of regime diplomats, and international recognition of transitional authorities. His urgent appeals are more than rhetoric. They are a call to action, a warning, and a plea for the world to support Iran's embattled citizens. The protests may be suppressed, or they may ignite the regime's collapse. The question now looms large: will the international community act, or will the bloodshed continue?
Flight tracking reports indicate unusual cargo aircraft movements involving Iran, Russia, and China. One Iranian Boeing 747 cargo aircraft reportedly arrived in Tehran from Moscow, while another departed Tehran for an undisclosed destination in China. The developments come amid claims that military equipment from Russia and China has been entering Iran in recent months, a signal that regional tensions may be driving deeper strategic coordination. Fine print in this report.
Just days ago, an Iranian Boeing 747 cargo plane landed in Tehran. The flight originated from Moscow and has drawn attention amid ongoing military cooperation between Russia and Iran. According to flight tracking data and social media observers, the Iranian-operated freighter arrived at Tehran, likely landing at Imam Khomeini International Airport or Mehrabad. The aircraft is reported to be Iranian-registered or operated, possibly by Mahan Air or another cargo carrier, but details like flight number or exact registration have not been confirmed. Around the same time, another Iranian Boeing 747 departed Tehran, headed for an unknown destination in China. Analysts say these flights are part of a pattern of increased cargo activity involving Russia, Iran, and China, potentially transporting large volumes of military equipment. Russia has supplied Iran with systems like attack helicopters, including the M-28 Havoc and air defense components. Much of this hardware is transported via heavy-lift aircraft, such as IL-76s, including Russian or Belarusian-linked planes that have landed in Tehran recently. Observers suggest the Iranian 747 from Moscow may have been carrying sensitive or military cargo, although no official details on the manifest have been released. Iran and Russia maintain close defense partnerships, including arms deals and joint support in regional conflicts. No official statements from Iranian or Russian authorities have clarified the flight's purpose, passengers, or cargo. Such flights often operate with limited public tracking due to sanctions on Iranian airlines and the sensitive nature of the routes. Mainstream media coverage remains limited, with most information coming from aviation enthusiasts, defense analysts, and social media posts citing flight radar data. This recent airlift is the latest sign of growing military and logistics cooperation between Russia, Iran, and China, and it highlights how air routes remain key to moving strategic equipment in the region.
The United States has issued fresh guidelines to American-flagged commercial vessels operating in the Strait of Hormuz, warning them to avoid Iranian territorial waters. The U.S. Maritime Administration has also instructed ship crews not to resist if Iranian forces attempt to board vessels in the strategic waterway, a sign of rising operational risk in the region. Watch this report telling you the gravity of the situation.
The message from Washington lands like a storm siren over the Gulf. American-flagged ships are being told to steer clear of Iranian waters and ignore any boarding commands from Tehran's forces. The warning reflects a fear inside the White House that Iran may try to seize a U.S. vessel as leverage in the escalating standoff. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow artery carrying a fifth of the world's oil, suddenly feels like a front line. Every radar blip, every radio call now carries the risk of a spark that could ignite a regional war. That danger came into focus this week when the U.S.-flagged tanker Stena Imperative was shadowed by 3 pairs of Iranian Revolutionary Guard boats while passing north of Oman. Armed crews attempted to hail the ship over VHF radio, demanding it stop. The captain kept his course, refusing the order as a U.S. warship moved in to escort the tanker to safety. British maritime monitors confirmed the tense encounter, and the UK Maritime Trade Operations launched an investigation. Iranian media later claimed the vessel had strayed into their waters without permits, insisting it left without any special security event, a version Washington openly doubts. Behind the incident lies a broader game of brinksmanship. Senior commanders of the Revolutionary Guards warned only days ago that they could shut the Strait of Hormuz entirely if the United States launches strikes. Tehran sees the waterway as its ultimate pressure card. The world sees it as an economic lifeline. Tensions have soared since President Donald Trump declared Iran's supreme leader should be very worried and signaled he is ready to use force if nuclear talks fail. His envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner visited the USS Abraham Lincoln after talks with Iran, a symbolic reminder that diplomacy is unfolding under the shadow of American firepower. That firepower is now gathering across the region. The Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group, backed by guided missile destroyers loaded with Tomahawks, patrols the North Arabian Sea. Dozens of U.S. aircraft, from fighters to surveillance drones and refueling planes, have surged into bases like Al Udeid in Qatar. Defense officials say the deployments create the architecture for strikes, though no final order has been given. Protest messages from Trump to the Iranian people, satellite images of new squadrons, and the latest naval confrontation all point in one direction. The countdown may already be running. The question echoing from Washington to Tehran is stark. Is this deterrence or the final approach to war?
That's all in this edition of World News. As diplomacy, military positioning, and internal unrest converge around Iran, the coming weeks could prove critical for regional stability and global energy security. Thanks for watching. Good night.